And basically what they are two saw blades that are the two outside saw blades. And this one is for the right side, and this one's for the left. And the only way I can tell that is every other blade has an angle to it. And what this top sharp angle is the outside part of the dado, so that it actually trims this veneer really nice and smooth, and the rest of it are chippers to get out most of the materials. Okay? The other parts of that are all chippers. They're all square, and that's what makes that square bottom. Okay? It's this one that has the angle, and that's to tell which is left and right. So this is the last one we put on, and I can put it on wood. Okay, so this is the first one we put on, because when it's on this arbor, this is the one closest to the left side. It has the tips on the closest to the left side. You can look at them up close and see. Okay. Before, this is always going to be the first one on, so we can put that one on right away. There you go.
You can take this.
Oh, I gotta take the stuff out too. Hold on a second. There is a nice little thing. I've only done it once, twice, and it's kind of it's the mechanism that holds the saw stop in. So this is the brake mechanism for the saw. It's got an electrical fitting here, and this is what compresses and just jams into the blade to stop it. And it's for a single blade. And you notice the difference here is how wide the differences are, right? This is for a dado set, so you have to change these out just as you would, not with a different blade, but with a dado set you have to put a different one on. Okay? So that goes in, and my assistant down here will put that in. And this little pin, and I'm not going to put it in because we had a tough time getting it out, but this little pin, the thing is like this, it goes into here, it goes in and turns to tighten it, to lock it in. Okay? And you don't want to chip the blade. So there's the pin, and Chris is taking care of that. And we just simply put the other one back in the same box for now, because we're going to change it back. The riving blade, which is what is attached here, so when the regular 10-inch saw blade goes up and down, this goes with it so wood does not bind. So that has to come off as well, because the dado is, with this dado, there's no riving blade, and you can actually do a stop dado by setting your board right down on the blade. It's a little, I would say, more dangerous. I do it, but. And so then we start putting the blades on, okay? So again, this is the closest blade, okay? And then what I did a couple weeks ago was I did a series of thicknesses depending on these spacers, okay? So this first one is a 5/8, and if we talked about or showed before, just happens to be the right this is 5/8, okay? Just the right amount for the shelf stand. I mean, that's a snug fit. It's deeper than what I would want to go, but at least that's the size. So we could dado the shelf standers on here. I think it's easier on that one. It's all set up. Just do it and be done with it. But that's to be aware of. So I started with a 5/8. That's no spacers. That's the two blades, 1/8 inch, and 3 of these. And these are all, they're thicker than 1/8 inch, but basically they become 1/8 inch spaces. So that's 5/8. So if you take your plywood that we cut some pieces last week, and I added a spacer, one dark spacer, they're not labeled, so I had a dark spacer. There's a dark spacer. And the next one is the dark spacer plus a 1/16 inch spacer. And somewhere in here is one that says it's a 1/16. I'd have to go look at see which one that is. Oh, I know. The dark spacer is a 1/16. Okay, the next one is a 1/16 plus a 0.5, maybe it's 0.05 inch spacer. Okay, and this one says 0.3. These must be hundredths of an inch. This is a 0.3. We'll use that down here. 0.3 hundredths probably. Or some increment. So they are numbered, some of them. And this is really thin, if you really want to get really close and accurate. Now the problem with spacers, when you put them on the threaded thing, think of this as the arbor, and they're going to sink down into the threads. So when you tighten it, they do get a little warped, or sometime around here they sort of like bend in. Okay, so we need to find this other spacer we're looking for. There's some big ones, and there's a 0.5. Okay, so these are the three that I have used to create these different spaces. One's without, one's with just this. The next one is one is with the 0.3, or no, 0.5, and then the next one is the, well, I'm sorry, 0.5, and then the 0.5 plus the 0.3. And then I did another one with two of these. So their increments to get thicker. And what we checked with the other day, last time we were here, is that this is the one we want to use for this plywood. Okay, it's really nice fit, very, very snug fit. So that's what we need to do. We need to put 5/8, which means the two red ones, inside and outside, 3 of these, which we have only 3, and this many spacers. And we need to get one more of the 0.3. Oh, these are 0.1s. There's some 0.1s. Okay, there's another 0.3. So these are the spacers. We have 5 blades. There's 4 space between. So we want to space these out, not all in one place. We want to put one, then another. So here I'm going to put the first one. I'm going to use the biggest one first, and I just put it on the arbor. And then I do this. They have a direction. They come. Saw is going this way. You want the cutting edge to be back here. This is a chipper so it doesn't get snagged. Okay? Now, and I don't know if you get a close-up here or not, but let's look at this. When you put this first spacer in, it has a place because the teeth are wider than the plate. You have to interchange these so that they don't go teeth to teeth. Okay, so all of these are that way. So you put the first one in and you rotate a little bit. You put the next spacer in. Okay, and the next cutter chipper. These are chippers. I don't know why my voice goes up when I say chippers. Okay, I make funny sounds when I work. Okay, so and I keep rotating those chippers around so no teeth sit next to each other. Okay, that's really important. Okay, so I put the second chipper in. There's another spacer. Make sure it's really snug. I sort of move it back and forth until it's right up snug. And then I put the last chipper in. Again, rotate it. One more little bit of rotation so no teeth are together. Last spacer. And of course I've already looked at these so we know what they are. And then we put in the last. This is the outer blade, okay? Because the tip is that direction, the top part, okay?
When you're putting those back in, one of the things that's good to do, that first rather than on top, because it tells the order to people so that this one is on the top, so when you take it out, you go in. This thing was reversed order, and some people will follow whatever the order they find the blades in.
Right. See, I would put them back in the correct order so that the last blade I put on is down the bottom.
Right. But that wasn't, it was flipped.
I know that, but I'm trying to be aware.
Yeah.
So however you find them, you need to be looking at them to see which one goes where. That's the biggest issue. And there, now I kind of jiggle them so that all of these spacers where they might go down into the threads it's a tight fit, okay? Then, this is where you don't want to drop it again. You put that on. Again, making sure it's a nice tight fit. And a snug fit by hand to start with for this. And again, these are right-handed threads, so it works okay. And then I go back and look at my cutter heads to make sure that no teeth are getting next to another tooth. Okay?
Can you space them out more than
Yes.
you have?
Yeah, you can space them out.
Like
I have a different set of my own
2
that
inch or
I
something.
do like every 45 degrees. But here you can do them all the same. It doesn't really matter when it's cutting.
There's no weight thing?
No, they all should be balanced quite well. So, finger tight, okay? Now, hand tight, or finger tight. tool type. Do not over tighten any of these things that we have for here, like router bits and everything else. Now this is just a quick, that's it. It's snug, okay? Doesn't need much work. The good thing is these have a rubber coating on the middle of them, but the ends don't. So when you're going into there, avoid hitting the carbide tips. They do chip if you get too close to them. Router bits is the same way. Because with the router bits, they have those, there's 2 wrenches that have a spoon-like thing on them. You have to carefully get underneath. So be aware of that. Okay, then you clean up and put everything away. We need a different thing.
What's the diameter at?
Oh, this is an 8 inch. Oh, we have to adjust our stop. That's next. Okay, so now, again, this is like a feeler gauge. If you were doing your spark plug in your car, back in the old days when you used to do that, now we don't do that, but this is a feeler gauge that this saw stop break has to be this distance from the blade, okay? So, and it has a slight curve to it, so you top and bottom, you check both places. Okay, we have now a 3/4 inch, this is 3/4 only. We have a 3/4 inch plate for here, because we can't use the standard one thickness. So, now we rotate this up, and we may have to take a couple pieces of sample plywood and make sure that it's the right height, okay? Right now, see, it's a little high,
He's gonna take.
so I'm gonna start with a little lower, and probably it's best to start lower. You can cut a little bit on your dado, check it and see. What you want is not so much how deep is the dado, but what's left. Because our layout says we want a 1/2 inch left. That way we have a 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch and makes everything work out perfectly. We don't care about what the inside dimension is. Okay, so that pretty much finishes our concern with how do we do this. We now need to cut our dados. Oh, I want one more thing to talk about, and that is if you're cutting a rabbet on the saw, there is this nice little thing right here for doing rabbet. This fits right over the top, which means you can get, if you're going to cut a rabbet here at the end, you can get your plywood right up to where you want to go. Usually it's longer, and that way you can actually have the edge of the saw cut right at the fence. If you didn't have this, you'd be doing that right against this nice fence. We don't want to do that. Okay?
Well, you trigger the saw stop as well.
Oh, that's a good reason not to.
Yeah.
I have, in the past, I've never had a saw stop. So for me, it's like, you know, you can always see the blade marks on the thing, so yeah. But anyway, this is, if you're going to cut next to the fence, it's a nice snug fit. Now, your measurements over here don't fit, don't work with this.
Right.
You've got to move it over and say, where is it? Do a test piece. Do a test piece, slide it over and say, okay, do a test piece. And you don't have to go the whole distance, just do a little bit. Say, hey, is that right? And take your plywood and say, put your piece in, does it flush when it gets cut off like that? That's the biggest thing here. So you have to do a few test pieces. There's one piece of scrap plywood from this that we cut out the other day that we can use for checking that depth, the depth and for a rabbet. Both teams are going to do the same cut, okay? So we might as well have the rabbet set up, cut them all. That's all, just the tops. There's two rabbets on each cabinet, and the lower one where there's a dado, and cut those. And then the one team that's going to do the back of the cabinet before they glue it all together, that's a little rabbet as well. You can do that rabbet here, or you can use a regular saw blade and cut up and cut over. So you turn first you cut one side, and you cut this rabbet, and then you turn over and you cut the other, and you get a little corner for whatever is easiest. I think it's easier to do that than the rabbet.
Which cabinet has the back again?
Well, they both have backs, but one gets cut beforehand and one gets cut afterwards.
Which one gets cut beforehand?
The one that has a face frame is going to get all cut out exactly what it needs,
Okay.
assembled, then the face frame goes on. The frameless gets bigger, no rabbets cut out yet, do that front edge, and then we go into getting the corners cut and everything else afterwards. Okay?